the heck is going on? Alright. No. God. Alright. How do I get rid of this? Uh... Oh my gosh. How do I get rid of this? That is so irritating. No. Let's try that out. Full screen. Nope. Don't want to do that anymore. Okay. There we go. Now let's see if I can keep up with you guys' comments. Now, full screen. Get some lights in here. I have to go water the plants real quick, so I'll be right back. Okay, so let me check the comments and see if anyone has left any comments. No, not yet. So, I saw the Superman movie, and I was actually quite surprised that that movie had as many You know, that's the same guy that did Dark Knight Rises, okay? And the Superman movie is like the most just, I don't know, like anti globalist. It was crazy. It was just crazy the extent to which they were willing to take the Superman movie and turn that into a anti-conspiracy movie. That was really odd to me. I would like to look into the history of that Superman movie in order to figure out what exactly might have happened there. Some more lights here. Okay. I need to share the link on my Facebook. Please join my Hangouts. Now, there is a way to do the Hangout where I'm hanging out, literally hanging out with you guys at the same time, and I would be very excited to do something like that so that we can talk a little bit. See, I'm currently live. All right, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go to the forums and comment on stuff that's going on right now. That seems like it would be. So 2 people died in an air show. I saw that video, and let me just go ahead and tell you something. I mean, people that are willing to go into planes, first off, it needs to be said that our technological abilities have basically halted. In fact, plane technology is just Neolithic in comparison to what we should be able to do. But unfortunately, we're kind of stuck, you know, and we're stuck with fossil fuels. We're stuck with, you know, plenty of restrictions and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, honestly, we should all have jetpacks, basically, that we can use that are totally safe, and we'd be flying around. We wouldn't be in planes and stuff like that. It's 2013, man. I mean, like, people thought we would be in Jetson style in the 80s, basically. And this is an example of when, basically, when World War I happened, everything started moving in the direction of classification, systems of classification. And when things became classified, suddenly all technological developments became classified. So the power structure essentially maintained a cartel on the technology, and everything became a matter of national defense. You couldn't really reveal what kind of technologies you have, and what makes the computer industry so amazing or vital is the fact that software is at the hands of everybody, and because of that, essentially the most technological progress we've made is in the field of software and hardware, but I mean hardware is necessarily being pushed by the software demands. And lo and behold, I'd say that our greatest chance for resistance has been essentially the free market of software that we've had access to, because you can't just go to a metal factory. You can actually go to a metal factory and submit designs and pay the price, but it's extremely expensive, and you know, they see what you're doing, and it's so dangerous that they're monitoring the shit out of us. If they see anything growing that they don't like, they just come right along and they clip it. I have to wonder what direction we're heading, because I was looking at that pyramid symbol, and that pyramid symbol, and you'll notice that the top of it is disconnected. So that the very top of the pyramid symbol, with the eye and all that, is disconnected from the base. And what it's a symbol of, what it's trying to say, is that it does not need the support of the lower portions, and in fact only makes it look like it has the support of the lower portions. And so really it's just this symbol of a right to rule, a symbol of divinity, a symbol that you know, it is something else entirely. And it's a symbol, you know, it's just like a, it's evil. I don't, it's funny that they even came up with it. It is certainly some sort of religion that you would naturally develop once you realize that you run the show, and you've been running the show, you know. And opposition to this group of people is extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. It's almost like you have to convince them. You have to convince them how it's in their interests to not screw us over. So, which is essentially true. I'd say that the more that we're capable of maybe impressing them, or maybe appreciating, not really appreciating them, but getting them to appreciate us, is really the best way to sort of find ourselves included in this access to the power. And I have speculated we might need to make a, you know, once we start realizing in general that yes, there is corruption, yes, there's conspiracy, yes, this is ruled by elite, then we need to, realizing that we can't really escape it, we need to, or fight it. You know, hopefully that's not true, but when and if we realize that, we might just come to some sort of a compromise where we're just like, look, I know you guys are worried. What I want to do is just realize we need to think ahead for humanity, and we need to have some kind of like a forgiveness movement. Like, okay, maybe you played some sort of functional role in keeping us from going into a nuclear war or something, but it's over now. We've got to get past this. We forgive you. We forgive all of your transgressions, all of your oppressions, and you know, you're not going to go into poverty, because as soon as you free everybody up and we get our hands on all the technologies and you free up the market, they really just don't believe that we're capable of, I don't know, maybe they do. They have to constantly push it down, so they probably do see it. They're just worried about people outclassing them or outpacing them, thinking that we'll destroy ourselves or something like that. Look, I know a perfect system. I know a better system. And in this better system, it's ruled by constitutional law. The private sector is just goes crazy. Okay, the private sector is uncontrolled, and if anything needs to be found out, is that everything that's wrong with the world is essentially coming from the cabal. I mean, like, it's astounding how many major bad world events are basically conspiracies. And so what I find important is that that in the new system, men are not allowed to take government positions. And you might think, no, that's crazy. You know, I even saw a daggum judge like turning a blind eye to this woman who's being basically like molested and arrested, playing with the person's child, and I'm sitting there thinking like maybe that theory is wrong. Maybe women aren't capable of holding uh, governmental positions, but in general, like in a general way. But the truth is that no, like I think it would work. I think in this new system, you've got to only, like, when it comes to positions of government, and I mean like as many positions as you can possibly think of, women are the only ones allowed to hold those positions, and the reason being is this: women are a little bit harder to corrupt, a little bit harder to compromise. They don't lie so well. They really don't. They, this not especially not towards other women. You have to understand, once you make the competition only other women, it suddenly becomes a different playing field, because women operate based on the resource of manipulating men. But once you take men out of the equation, what you have are a bunch of super rational beings. Like, people think, oh, women are irrational. Well, some, yes, some are very much that way. But the truth is, once they have the guidelines, oh, that's sweet. Um, Once they have the guidelines, let me go ahead and check and see if you guys are leaving comments yet. No. Maybe I'll refresh it and find out. Any comments? Nope. Okay, so this is the theory of how we make a better system. I'm talking about potentially, in general, I think the system would just basically work if we got rid of the psychopaths that are running everything. Like, we don't even know what that would be like once we get rid of the people who probably had just a plain religious motivation and subverted and created a bunch of bullshit. So maybe that'll just work and we'll be okay. But the truth is that we'll always be subject to corruption again. And so I propose that, of course, we have to change it, or we have to safeguard against it. And I think, and so my proposition is that men, you know what, you can have the private sector, you can do the businesses, you can do, you can be anything you want to be, but the only people that are allowed to hold governmental positions are women, period. And the reason being is that they're more prone to being reputationally minded. And once you cut men out of the equation, once you cut men out of the power scheme, women basically then fall down to, however, just how effective they are, rather than how effective they are towards men. Because it'd be weird. I mean, I really feel like that's the case. And why do I say cut men out of the government sector? I say that because men are very easily corruptible. Men are far more irrational. They are much more willing to compromise. They come up with delusions of grandeur. They extrapolate in multiple philosophical ways, and come to think stupid things like I'm God, and they tend to think like they become a little bit power hungry. They're very insecure. Men just do not make good politicians. They don't make they aren't very good in the private sector. I mean, in the government. And so guess what? That's okay, because men really wouldn't care. Men typically frown upon, government jobs. Men tend to espouse private sector, being able to make it in the private sector. And that's true, because, when you go, when you're somebody that's just trying to be a career politician, basically, there's a lot of that's just like, oh, you're just a baby. Oh, you've just sort of made your way you've done really well in school, so to speak. But the truth is that whenever men do well in the private sector, it's like, oh, you did a lot of that on your own. You did a lot of creation or whatever on your own, and that is important. And so men are now. I think it would be a totally fine compromise. Men would just be like, yeah, that would be fine. And the other thing is that women are far more capable of like the way you would compromise women is that you would compromise something with their children, but they're far more capable of neglecting the well-being of their mate. Um, but they're not like that. Like you, they would obviously have a hard time neglecting their children, but you know, but basically it would just it would need to come. I need to contemplate that. So if you had the government was only restricted to the female gender, and then men, let's say a group of men, like cabal type men, wanted to start corrupting things, they might threaten the life of their children in order to get them to do things. But the thing is that they would never be able to do it at one time, because it's just way more difficult. Like, see, but like if you're a man, you compromise that motherfucker just by like sticking a camera somewhere and then catching him masturbating or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it's way easier to compromise men. It is not so easy to compromise women. Women are a little bit more their behaviors a little bit more prone to rational mindsets. Any comments? No comments yet.
Compromise that motherfucker just by like.
So it would basically need to be a radical restructuring of things in the event that we ever turn things around. And oh, people are commenting. Okay, wait. There we go. All right. Didn't even know this was possible on YouTube. These messages don't seem to be noticeable. They suppress technology as a method of control. That's correct. The top level would have to unlearn everything like a newborn in reverse. They suppress technology. I think your system of men in biz and women in government is risky and not voluntary. What about a system of ostracizing the criminal without any jails? Oh, let's see. Top level would have to unlearn everything like a newborn in reverse. Okay. So
Messages.
Yeah. Basically, the idea of ostracizing, kind of like Escape from L.A. or whatever. I mean, yeah, we could probably pull off something like that. Basically, I don't know if people knew this, but Australia was indeed a sort of prison colony, and the kingdom, the British, English, United, whatever kingdom, was deporting their criminals to Australia, and with that sort of mindset, like, let's just, release our criminals on the other side of the world. And I'm of the opinion that nobody is ever evil. In fact, like, what it is that people are basically mistaken. Like, there are people who, if you correct their thinking, will inevitably come to an agreement with you, basically. In fact, the brain exhibits extreme plasticity. In fact, like for instance, somebody who is I think it was Socrates said, nobody does what he believes to be wrong. He always does what he believes to be right. And even if the guy's like, oh, I'm gonna look, I'm gonna prove you wrong. I'm gonna go ahead and do something that I know is wrong. The truth is, he's doing that because he thinks that at that moment, proving that wrong is the right thing to do. You know what I'm saying? So it's really all about informing people. And so the part of our subversion comes from, so the idea of like ostracizing them is actually correct. I mean, like, basically they have more learning to do, but there is a natural process that occurs in the person that was transgressed upon, which is like, oh my gosh, that fucking sucked that you did that. Now I'm going to like beat you up, or I'm going to sort of make you feel small, or whatever. Because what you're doing in reality is you're not just punishing that person, you're helping that person come to understand how much it hurt you. I don't know if that makes any sense. Kind of like, I don't know, but I'm sure that there's some sort of, yeah, I mean, you're basically negatively stimulating improper behavior. Okay, but yeah, I mean, like, what I think once people understand, like, once we get rid of the slavery, I mean, there is literal slavery going on here. Once we get rid of the slavery, the technological state of things will be so incredible, like, I mean, it'll be like Star Trek. It'll be like phasing in food, just doing whatever you daggone will please. There will be, you know, there are scenarios which are dangerous. Like, you know, you could take all of your newfound technology and use it for nefarious purposes. But in general, there's going to be so much psychological, I mean, because right now, here's an example, like how many of these psychological terrorists or whatever are actually just psychological operations staged by these real psychopaths, the cabal, right? So if anything, like, I'm wondering how more people aren't just snapping. I'm wondering how all these people aren't putting it together in their heads. Like, I need to commit a crime at this point because I'm so depressed, or I'm so, like, out of the loop, and basically the hold on, what am I trying to say? Let me read some more comments. That's right. When the world flips upside down, I mean, there might not be any need. I mean, it'll be amazing. It'll be basically amazing, just what will be capable. I mean, just like an example is like, you'll be able to drive infinitely. Like, your car will be made in such a way that it won't tear up with planned obsolescence. You will have access to an infinite energy resource, and you will just get in your car and be like, I feel like driving to Alaska right now. And you'd get in your car and you would just drive, and then you'd pull over somewhere, and your food would be free. And why? Because there's a bunch of robots out there that are doing all of the farming, and you know, you'll never have to work. You'll just go and you'll put on, you know, you'll fly around possibly. You know, it'll be heaven. I mean, the technology is all right there. It's just suppressed. It's all, you know, like if you were to try to pursue cold fusion, and let's say you started making headway, the oil cartel. Well, you know, the oil cartel is really just a way of immobilizing the species, would come along and kill you, and almost certainly, or subvert you, or whatever. I mean, just where's Richard Gage at? Where's the guy that headed up Architects and Engineers at? Where's the guy that woke up shit tons of Americans to the death of 3,000 people, of their own people, and millions of other people? So the psychopaths are the offspring of fallen angels. I would think, and I don't know this, Either we are extremely unlucky to have this issue, this carnivorous branch of our intelligent species to come up and mess us all up, or this is, some sort of natural process, that there is some sort of a extraterrestrial force which is acting against us. It's highly possible that in the grand scheme of things, that there are abstract forces at play here on this planet attempting to literally shut down whatever result we would have in millions of years of technological progress. I mean, we would essentially convert our entire solar system into some sort of machination, So there could be, just in general, like these abstract forces of the universe in play right now. Indeed, once we have like limitless access to energy, it is like unlimited potential on an individual scale. And so, I mean, like, obviously right now I would be like, I feel like going and seeing Niagara Falls or something like that. I'd, hop in some sort of a speed train that would take me over there in 30 minutes. I'd pop out, there'd be a bunch of people all, walking around, and I'd be like, hey, how's it going? And everybody would be like, hey. I'd be like, this is beautiful. And they're like, yeah. And then they'll be like, well, hey, did you know what's going on in Paris right now? And I'll be like, what? Oh, they're having this neat thing. And I'll get on there and take another hour, and then speed over there to Paris and have a nice time over there. But in fact, why just these locations? I mean, people would have access to so much energy and potential that I'd have my own sort of amazing thing for people to come see. The people that have power with their mansions and stuff like that are just like with the nice fences that keep everybody away, and they get to run around with their little sunglasses and cars and poodles, and just that is who rises to the top. That is who basically, man, there's so much room for justice. Why aren't we waking up faster? Why on the news is nobody talking about revolution? Why? It's just, let me project here a little bit. Basically, you have the world coming to understand that Obama did the same thing as Bush. And when you do that, you start to see the left-right paradigm. What that is to say is that you really start to like go, what is going on behind these two people? And I hate to say it, but the template's already out there, and everybody's already thinking it's a conspiracy, it's Illuminati, it's whatever, take your pick, aliens, whatever, so, not necessarily aliens, but just mafia gangster motherfuckers. Alright. I do have to wonder who's behind it, because some of these schemes are taking decades, if not centuries. And I mean, they're on record. So the question becomes just, is this a human being? You could make the case that it's not a human life form, or it's somebody with an unnaturally long, or an access to an unnaturally long life that could come up with such patient schemes. But I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's a ideology, basically. I think it's like something that is passed on, and passed on in this very strict way. And when you watch Eyes Wide Shut, you can start to see, like, okay, that is a very coordinated, that is a very systematic, that's a dark art right there. if that has been developed over the course of centuries, I can see how that would basically become a cohesive, sentient life form in itself, its own little everlasting entity. Okay, let's see what else we got. So yeah, talking about the system that needs to be made. Okay, so the problem is and has been corruption. And it's just not that hard to compromise somebody. Like you just have to target that person, and I could do it easily. I could probably just walk up to them and go. You just have to be salient and catch their attention, and then you could just say, "Oh yeah, well, find out something. Find out if they're not allowed to smoke. Get them to smoke and get it on camera, or find out, because you can get away with the blackmail basically, because you're allowed in a corrupt system to get away with whatever you daggone well please, or find out how much that person can be bought off for, or it's too easy to compromise men, and then when you have women going in, are the only ones in government, they're going to be financially okay because their men are private sector men. And once you take care of all of everyone's needs, there's probably not going to be any need for... And then everything becomes status at that point. What have you accomplished? How good is your reputation? It'll basically be based on something similar to fame. But, not in the nasty way of fame that we describe it now, but it'll be like, oh, you're awesome, and I don't feel negatively stimulated by you in any way, and I trust you, and you're extremely transparent, and you're amazing, and I want you to, the cabal can't fool us into thinking that about somebody that isn't that way. I mean, especially other women would be able to pick it up. Any more questions here? Yes, they do suppress technology as a form of control. It's basically species immobilization. So what they're doing is they're like, they print money out of thin air. Like, all economics is basically BS. So basically, they're just like, okay, I'm gonna put a bunch of money right over here because that's how much money it takes to put my corporation down, to buy out this person or incorporate that person into my corporation. And what they do is they basically just they make it look like it's a free market. They make it look like it's private sector. Make it look like you have to work for them. But they strategically litter everything with corporations which must allow all the local competition, and then they print up as much money as it takes to keep them as the presiding narrative, to keep them and then let's see, what does this say? Yes, I can't reconcile the length of plots. Is it spiritual echoes, or is it a short cycle thing? It is some of the stuff, I mean, just like hearing in 1912 that they planned on, I mean, you have to understand this, okay? The Founding Fathers, their original plan for dealing with these, the Americans, and I hate to say this, the Americans can basically wash their hands clean of the atrocity of the African slave trade, the suppression of whatever other races there are, and even the slaughtering of the Native Americans. Even though they did carry out these things further, you can't tell who was really behind that, because it must be known, it must be said, that the Founding Fathers actually lamented the bad things that were going on in the colonies before the American Revolution occurred, and even afterwards. And so, really, when the Founding Fathers realized, okay, I don't like this institution of slavery. This really happened. Jefferson was like going down to the South and was starting a movement. They were starting to move in the direction of deporting all of the African slaves to Liberia, and the Southern colonists, or well, the Southern states, who were also backed. I mean, this was even noted by the Tsar, the King or Tsar of Russia. Basically, the bankers were backing the Southern states. Why? Because that's where they were doing all the trade from. And so the South was actually quite corrupt in terms of these internationalist bankers. And quite ironically, they caused the South to reject the notion of deporting all the slaves to Liberia. In fact, Liberia is an English-speaking nation in Africa, and that might have to do with the fact that many of these slaves ended up getting deported over there. And they even had the slaves saying, "We don't want to go to Liberia. We want to be slaves," because the Founding Fathers knew that it would basically weaken the country. It's a racist thing, but it's not unwarranted, because if you released all of these slaves, they would hold an eternal resentment against their former masters. They would look at the United States as an oppressor, not as a liberator. And despite the fact that we freed them, they still hold, such resentment, and the whites are afraid of that resentment and hold resentment against them for that reason. And so there's all this massive tension. But of course, the Masonic duality, order out of chaos thing really likes that. And in a way, the Americans, because of these trials, are actually very adept at many things. And you might even make the argument later, oh, it's good that we went through this. But yeah, that was their intention. The Founding Fathers were like, okay, we want to end slavery, but we can't just release all of these malcontents into society, because they'll never get along, and instead they're just going to be, this constant criminal element in our society, because they'll always feel as though, whatever, they always feel as though the whites would be indebted, as though the government itself would be indebted. And you actually have people that were looking to subvert the nation looking at them and thinking, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to promote the dark races. You literally have this being said in 1912. We're going to propound into the consciousness of the darker races the idea that the eternal problem of white man's oppression until so that they will hold resentment. And so, because you have to understand, like, the whole target of these internationalist bankers is the U.S. Constitution. They have to destroy that Constitution. But it's also a nice smokescreen, a nice front for them, because as long as that we're living under the supposition that we're under this Constitution, that they remain hidden, essentially, in plain sight, basically. They're just hidden, oh no, it's a totally free market, you should be blamed for how bad the economy is. It's like, no, we're waking up now how, it's a fucking private bank, and you guys print money out of nowhere. Excuse me. Any more questions for me? Okay. So I will continue to talk about. I'll continue to talk about the better system. The better system, I suspect, could be had by, because then men would not seek political office. That would be for the women to do. Suddenly it's in, women suddenly feel like they don't need men. They feel like their role has been defined and this is their role, basically. It's not racist against women, if anything, or sexist against women, if anything, it's sexist against men. But this is a very warranted thing because of the notably much more out of control sex drive that men have, and the propensity for neurosis. Like, men will essentially do weird things like think that they are the Messiah, or think that they are meant to do this, or you know what I mean? They actually delude themselves. Women tend to stay very much more practical. Women just want to do exactly what they have to do. They don't want to, expound and prove their divinity or anything like that. Men are very much not like that, and for their own reasons, So men obviously belong in the private sector, but women, women could simply do their duties. Like, I'm not even sure to what extent I would expand that. Like, you might even say that women, only police officers or enforcers of the law should be women. And I know you're thinking like, oh, that's impossible. Well, with technology, that's possible now. As long as you put enough women in there, then they'll be able to take care of it. And especially if you're like, all women are members of government, then you could see that happening. They're also concerned about things like safety, for their children or whatever. They're also more diplomatic. They're not likely to go like, okay, we're going to war against you, other women. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no. They're more likely to sort of talk it out, basically, because they're worried about safety. They don't want to have to die, And as long as, but naturally you might think like, okay, that's just impossible, because you will get a group of men who will attempt to subvert that government, but I don't think it would be very easy or possible, and other men would very quickly snuff it out, or women. That's right. So less than 5% of the whites actually owned any slaves, but 30% of the Jews, yeah. And really all of that goes back to, okay, when the Catholic Church was all over Europe, they were excommunicating people, and once you were excommunicated, you were out of the loop. You were outside of society. You were like, okay, when I die, I'm going to go to hell because I've been excommunicated. So you needed some sort of alleviation from this. So I suspect that a lot of these people, these so-called Jews, are in reality converts to Judaism. Like, they literally just thought, there's something wrong. There's nothing wrong with me. There's something wrong with Catholicism, or but their release was a Jewish, instead of going for Judaism 2.0, aka Christianity, we're going to revert and just say, no, that's a perversion. We need to go with Judaism. And the unfortunate thing there is that Judaism already had its, it's just really a catastrophic series of, it's crazy, man. How did I get born on the planet where such things would occur, like religions of pure racism? Like, people say, oh my God, imagine if the Nazis would have won World War II. And it's like, no, you don't get it. There's something way worse than Aryanism and Nazism and it has existed since time immemorial of the human race, and it is Judaism, basically. It is the idea that your own lineage is fundamentally tied to the very existence of the universe, and thus all actions taken in that respect are justified, even to the extent that, you know, you could live forever. And it's very dangerous. I have to use the restroom, and I will be right back. Oh. Okay, I'm back. I am back. I'm going to order some sushi while I am here. Sushi to go. Order some sushi. So, are there any more questions you might have for me? Oh my gosh. That's a good way to spice things up. Very good, very good. Okay. Sorry, I'm ordering sushi right now. God, it's not saved in there. Let's see if there's any comments. None yet. Oh, okay. Where's my phone? Okay, my friends, I'm going to go ahead and let this upload. Let me get this stuff here.